The problem humans have with God is the problem they created. It is called the problem of evil. It is really the problem of humanity. Man knows evil exists because humans create it. They see themselves create it and then ask why it exists if God exists. Man knows evil is incompatible with God, and indeed, evil is incompatible with the existence of God. It is logical to suppose if God exists, God is omnipotent and has created everything. The Bible even details this creation, and in one part of Scripture God declares in Isaiah 45 verse 7. I form the light, and create darkness, I make peace, and create evil, I the Lord do all these things. Yet, the question of whether God created evil remains a deep theological and philosophical issue. No matter what is said or discovered, the topic has been debated for centuries. It appears there are an unlimited amount of different perspectives, each expressing a different religious tradition, interpretations of sacred texts, and philosophical frameworks. Is there no statement or argument to be made that would put the issue to rest? God, because of how we think about God, in most monotheistic traditions, is not considered the creator of evil, at least not in the sense of it being a distinct, independent entity. Instead, evil is often understood as the absence or distortion of good, resulting from free will, human choices, or the natural consequences of a fallen world. God in this view did not preclude evil from arising because of free will. Even if we do not understand how to prove our point, most Christians do not think God is evil in the way Satan is evil, nor does evil in the way the demons do wrong. Even when God does what seems wrong to us, it is still not evil in the conventional sense, simply because it is God that does it. God killing humans has not the same context as humans killing humans. In other words, the majority of Christian and Jewish theologians argue that God created a world with the potential for evil by granting free will to humans and spiritual beings, e.g., angels, but did not specifically create evil. Evil in this theology arises from the misuse of freedom, not from God directly. For example, in Genesis, the fall of Adam and Eve introduces sin and suffering as a consequence of disobedience, not as a direct creation of God. However, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil was created by God and put in the garden within the reach of Adam and Eve. The biblical reference usually cited, especially by atheists, is the passage in Isaiah 45 verse 7 quoted above. God specifically says, I form the light, and create darkness, I make peace, and create evil. Scholars often interpret evil, in this context, as calamity or disaster or divine judgment, not moral evil. Modern translations like the NIV use disaster instead of evil to reflect this. St. Augustine and later theologians like Thomas Aquinas described evil as a privatio boni, privation of good. Meaning it's not a substance or thing created by God but a lack of goodness, like darkness is the absence of light. Murder is the cessation of human life due to the actions of a human murderer, for example. The existence of evil is often explained as a precondition for free will. For humans to have meaningful freedom to choose good, the potential for choosing evil must exist. Thus, God didn't create evil but allowed its possibility by creating free beings. Freedom comes with obligations, in this scenario. We are not permitted to use our freedom to curtail the moral freedom of others, because God permitted us moral freedom. Naysayers, this creates its own set of problems. What they ask is, why would an all-powerful, all-good God allow evil to exist in the first place? Theologians like C.S. Lewis argue that free will is essential for love and moral growth, and evil is a byproduct of creatures' choices, not God's design. How can we experience love unless we have experienced or can imagine acts of hate? Would kindness matter or even be possible, if it was not in response to the hateful actions done by others? If Satan did not exist, could we understand God's love? In Islam, evil is often seen as a test or trial for humanity, permitted by Allah but not directly created as an entity. Human actions and Satan's influence contribute to moral evil, while natural disasters may serve divine purposes. In some Eastern traditions, like Buddhism, evil is not attributed to a creator deity but arises from ignorance, attachment, or karma within the cycle of existence. Dualistic religions, like Zoroastrianism, posit opposing forces of good and evil, but even here, the evil force, e.g., Engramenu, is often subordinate to the good, not created by the supreme deity. However, such views concerning evil gives it the appearance of a disembodied spirit with an independent origin, separate from the actions of the good deity. Philosophers have argued along with Leibniz, who coined the term theodicy, that this world, despite evil, is the best possible world God could create, balancing free will, moral growth, and divine purposes. In short, there is not a world of unmitigated good, as there will always be people and events that fail to achieve the highest of all possible outcomes. If we enjoyed perfect peace, we would be in heaven and like God. Only God can enjoy the perfect existence that is God's. Failing to see any solution to the dilemma, modern thinkers have questioned whether evil is a coherent concept at all. They ask if evil is not merely a human label for suffering and moral failure, independent of a divine act of creation. In this view, evil is that which we find distasteful or inconvenient or annoying. Evil is what we would reject were we God. The claim that Satan is the source of evil, as is present in Christian theology, is thought to only make the problem once removed from the source of the problem. Satan's rebellion against God introduces evil into creation, which seems to let God off the hook, but Satan himself is a created being, so his choice to rebel still points back to the free will argument. The question as to the creation of evil is only altered to become the question of why did God create Satan when Satan was predestined to bring evil into the world. The problem of natural disasters is more easily explained, at least for Christians, as a consequence of a fallen world. They can also be deemed to be part of a natural order that serves a greater divine purpose. But then even this position goes back to why did God create a natural order that produces natural disasters? Evil is best explained as an emergent property of creation. Evil is not directly created by God but emerges from the freedom granted to created beings. Evil is a distortion of good or an abeyance of moral justice. What we have not really discussed is what evil is, objectively. This is the issue atheists fall afoul of because they believe anything they label evil is of necessity a bad thing. That would be no different than the Nazis thinking their defeat in the war was an evil outcome. The rest of the world disagreed. The question needs to be asked: is evil even a thing? How do evil and sin differ, if at all? We cannot see or taste evil. Indeed, evil is often a matter of perspective. Even today there are some who see Germany's wars as just and good and communism as having value. But is this any different than thinking capitalism and democracy are good things? It really matters what methods we use to evaluate the actions of others. No one thinks of themselves as evil. No one looks at the things they do as being evil. Indeed, if we did something it is because we justified it in some way. This is why it is strange to see the family of victims thinking their child's murderer is going to be as remorseful as the child's family. If the murderer was capable of remorse, he would never have committed murder. Without an objective definition of evil and a way to quantify it, evil becomes personalized. It is made relative. Evil becomes what is done to us and measured by how negatively impacted we are by the actions of others. This is why people can think Germany was justified in waging their wars. Some people think that their lives was made better by what Germany did. That so many others had their lives taken from them or ruined because of these wars, does not enter into their equation. What we must understand is that evil is not a substance or an isolatable factor. We cannot take Hitler, for example, and isolate the evil to derive a decent human being. Indeed, evil is not in the action but the heart. Evil is the motive, not the consequence. A man attempting to defuse a bomb that sets it off in the attempt, did not perform an evil act any more than a country fighting Hitler did evil when civilians died as a consequence of the effort to eliminate him. God created beings with free will, how they used this is on their head. Even if God foresaw evil, it is still on the person who did the act, not on God. The parent is not evil for giving his child a bike even though it could be foreseen the child would be hurt as a consequence of it. God did create evil because without God we would not know what evil is. It is having the standard of God that permits us to understand what evil is. But evil is not a thing, and God created physical reality, and evil is not physical. When man was ejected from Eden, he was ejected out of God's creation. God did not create the fallen world because evil is not a creation, it is a destruction. We cannot blame the builder for the fire that burned the building down or for the arsonist who started the fire. The builder made it possible for the fire, the builder created the possibility for the destruction of what he built, by building the structure. The destruction is still wholly on the head of he who destroyed what others created.